his own interest in books, and the fact that we were noticing that there was some death of bookshops in Goa at the moment. So the latest that was reported actually was the demise of Six Asagaon, which is a bookshop at Asagaon. Very interesting, colorful bookshop run by Orijit Sen and Gurpreet, and it closed rather abruptly at the end of June 2021 during the pandemic. Eric, what are your thoughts? Why is this happening? What can we do?
Everything needs to sell. If things don't sell, like books, then I suppose it's a natural death. So I was thinking we need to popularize reading, and we need to popularize books. So the best way I thought was used to get editors of newspapers in Goa to devote a small part of their news, of their dailies, for maybe, or at least on a weekly basis, for a small book review, which someone could write and give it to them free and say, please publicize. It's not, we don't want anything from this, but let's have books that can be whatever, books that can be accessed, whether from bookstores in Goa or elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure that your concern comes from the fact that you have been a very strong lover of books. I've seen you in Broadways, spending hours together there, spending a lot of your resources. But in to continue what we were saying before we started recording, during our informal talk, where exactly is the crisis? Where do you see, where is the engineering of books going wrong? Engineering of book sales, if we could use that term.
No, there are a couple of factors. One is that the mobile has been a big, even with me, my reading has dropped a lot because of WhatsApps and Facebook and what should I say, the cyber world in general. So my reading has dropped. And if my reading has dropped, I don't think my book buying has dropped, because I buy books in hope that I'll read them in future. And often I'm able to dip into them and keep some time. But the mobile and everything else in general, the cyberspace has been intruding so much in our lives.
Yeah, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, so no, I think it has been intruding so much on our lives that the physical act of reading a book and devoting that time to a book is not there anymore.
If I could just add to your point, what I'm wondering is it possible to use cyberspace to build the visibility of the book? That's my question to you. Because see, it's not that we have not tried.
That has also been a good thing, because we have a couple of WhatsApp groups that are dedicated only to books and book reading and book buying and book selling. Yeah. That does do a bit. But I don't know whether we need to have another either a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group or something that looks specifically at books of our interest, Goa books, that should be of interest to Goans, and whereby people can go to those sites. Maybe we use cyberspace to create that kind of a thing where people would go and read maybe something a little about the book and get them more interested to buy the book.
Yeah, adding to that, Eric, what seems to be going wrong is also that in Goa we don't have the other aspects of other contributory aspects which could create a wholesome book kind of environment. So like libraries, we have two great libraries. This is always the point which I've kept on making. We have two great libraries, but the rest is a wasteland. We don't have libraries at the village level. We lack enough bookshops. So maybe Panjim, Margam are well covered, other areas are not. we lack reading movements, reading movements, writer groups, critiquing groups. So I mean, like, would you like to weigh in on that? Agree or disagree or whatever?
Yeah, no, there are there are a lot of things that we do like, but maybe we do need, even if we have a small group working towards this, it would it. I have in front of me the book about the the influence of Portuguese in Goa, not only on the west but around the whole coast of Goa. And I wanted the Bombay Natural History Society to actually buy, and they have a good reach. So I wrote to one of them. I said, "See, this is a good book," and I wrote a small review. And I said, "Please see if you can buy." But I did not get a response yet. But I think I again get back to them, because what happens? One person writing about a book is not going to make that much of a dent in, or the person I sent it to, because it's it was a lady who's more active in sort of propagating the Bombay Natural History Society. She may not have been so interested in the historical part, where Bombay also was a part of the west coast of India, and it had great significance to the Portuguese in its empire days.
There's that very
So
interesting page. Yeah, sorry.
they have been having a lot of seminars about Bombay and its history, and I've attended some of them, and
There's this
how it became a great port finally.
there's this very
But that
interesting
was,
Wikipedia page called Bombay Before the British, which talks about exactly what you're saying.
yeah, this
But
book talks about Bombay before the British.
while we are on that point, tell us a little bit about your reading taste, your reading habits. What do you enjoy reading? What
Um,
exactly?
I love history, and the latest thing is there's a book written by a South Indian, I think he's a Keralite, and where he tries to show us the connection between the Mohenjo-daro civilization, which now we are coming to know was a Dravidian civilization, and the big movement of that civilization to South India. So he looks at the Chennai-based civilization. I mean, what do we call it? The Madurai and the Pandyan kingdom, and he links it up with the Mohenjo-daro civilization, and he finds a lot of commonality between the words. Now, I have not read the book. I ordered the book. I've not got a hold of it. But
So
it was reviewed by the Hindu. The reviews were so good that I put the reviews up on that I shared the reviews up on Facebook.
so basically,
I think that's a great book. It's rather expensive, but um, as far as our roots go, and not only our roots, as far as the common, what should I say, the common threads that run, that say, the Aryans and the Dravidians, and south of the Vindhyas is more of the Dravidians. This book tries to link up and tries to debunk the theory that these are two civilizations, that the Vedic civilization, or what you say, the civilization of the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa was an Aryan civilization, and the rest of it was not. That's not true, because it looks like, with several books, like one of Tony Joseph, and then there are several other books with even, I think, Romila Thapar now beginning to come around to realize that kind of a narrative is no longer right, and it is being pushed by certain vested interests. We have a history that is a more, let's say, a lot more. Uh, it's not the black and white which we try to see. There was a lot of movement of the Mohenjo-daro civilization because of various factors. They moved along the west and also the east coast of India. So there's a
so
lot about Goa, why they came to Goa. I mean, that's something for another day. And
But
if you look at the actual Goans were the Kundis and the Gaudis who knew and who had actually built all our Gaonkari system, the Kazan lands and all was built by them. And in 1000 AD, we came and we came, well, I don't know whether I should say we, but we usurped their land and we drove them to the margins. We gave them very figurative kind of treatment. Sometimes don't get the words, maybe. So, and this has happened right along the the west coast and then the east coast also, because this civilization went round to coastal India, because it was from the Mohenjo-daro, which was a great river, it moved down towards the southern coast of Gujarat. And they had sort of the last stand there. And when that entire area was engulfed by the sea, they started moving out in large numbers along the rest of the Indian coast. Now, this is part of my theory, but what I read and what I see now sort of links up this with what this book is about. And I can't remember the name of the book, but it's about the Dravidian movement and the language and the Dravidian, the languages.
So Eric, how much of your reading is really fiction? How much is non-fiction? And has it changed over the years?
I would say it's 70% non-fiction, 30% fiction.
Has it changed over the years? How did this come about? Do you like history from the start?
Yeah, it has. When I was young in my 20s and all, I read a lot of fiction. I remember reading even authors whom now I try to find, and they are just lost in whatever. Once or twice I went to Pune, and I can't remember where the name of the author was Howard something, or I can't remember, but Howard Spring, I think. I don't know. But he wrote such nice books, and I tried to see again whether I could get those books ever, but they are gone. There were several other nice books.
In terms of bookshops,
no, sometimes it's not a bookshop. I have a big habit of going to the street bookshops or whatever. When I was in Delhi, I used to go to the thereabouts, and I'm glad it's opened again. And when I was in Bombay, I used to go to this Honeyman Circle and other places where I used to get books. And I used to walk up and down those roads, and there was once upon a time when that entire street was full of books. The one between Churchgate and this thing, it used to be absolutely chock full of people who were selling books. And today, I think they've all gone except for one small little triangular area where I think they still sell books.
What was the culture of bookshops in Goa?
What was the
culture of bookshops in Goa since the time you first know them? How did they grow? How did they change?
Bookshops in Goa. I mean, we had symbols. And if we wanted a book, we had to go and ask for that particular book. I mean, you could never go in and browse. But later, they allowed browsing. So then I used to go to symbols and go and look. They had a very limited kind of this thing. They used to cater more to textbooks. But there was this yoga fellow from Mapsa, and he used to have a very much bigger collection. I can't remember the name of his bookshop, but he had two. He had one in Mapsa and he had one in Panjim.
Kamath? No.
Yoganand Kamath.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't remember the name of the bookshop, but Varsha, I think. No. Varsha. No. Varsha, again, if you wanted a book, you needed to give the name and say, I want this particular book, and he used to go and get it for you. So you needed to come pre-warned. With pre-knowledge about the book you want, then you had to find it out from somewhere or the other and say, I want this particular book. I read a great number of books, and I got a number of books from the flea market.
Yeah.
And that was a great melting pot of cultures between East and West.
In
Some
what
of the
language?
nicest books, but fiction as well as non-fiction, I picked up at the
In
flea market.
English. In English.
English, of course, there were others also. There were a lot of French books, since I don't know French and German. There were a lot of Germans used to come to learn Indian culture, and I remember meeting quite a few of them.
This is
But
80s, late 80s, early 80s, late 70s?
they are
No.
the 70s and the early 80s. By
I see.
about mid 80s, it was sort of already dying down. They were not able to come, and they used to come in the caravans and all across Afghanistan.
Overland route. You're driving down from Europe to
Exactly.
Goa.
It was the overland route that brought them down. Once that went away, that whole
Hippie culture.
mixing of cultures which we had before went away. Then we had a few. I remember going to Kalangut, and because they were voracious book readers. All the people who came, even though they came with their knapsacks, they came with a lot of books. They read about India. They brought their books about other countries and other cultures and brought them back with them down to India and sold them to little bookshops, which I used to see in Kalangut and Baga.
Talking
There were
about
several.
Kalangut, Talking about Kalangut, do you remember this small Gada which was there run by an old uncle, probably from Bombay, a stout guy who used to run this Gada very close to the Kalangut market, maybe about 20 meters away from the.
Yes, yes. Yes.
You remember that?
Remember him.
I wonder what happened. I used to go there with so fond memories. My mom used to take me when I was a kid. So,
Okay.
yeah.
No, I do remember. I do remember he had a small little round cart.
Yeah.
It was this thing. It was a cart. No, it was physically
It was a
cart.
cart.
I think.
It was a cart. It was a Gada, yes, with some, yeah.
Yeah, it was a Gada. So yeah,
And
yes, he did have. And I
which
remember
else?
a
Which
little
else?
inside there was a much bigger bookshop, which had hundreds of books. But I don't see that place anymore. And a lot of this kind of bookshops you saw in other places too. And I can't remember all of them.
1970s? You're talking about 70s or what?
No, I'm talking more about. I think I'm talking more about the 80s. 70s, I was growing up. So 70s, I used to read a lot of. See, I passed out in 72. After that, I became a member of the Artide Municipal Library, and
In
I
Mapsa.
used to read a lot of their books. In fact, I even now I meet the guy he was the librarian there.
What's
He's
his
a
name?
Manerkar from Panjim.
I see. Retired,
So
obviously,
he
now.
still sees me, and he recollects that I used to come very this thing. Then I used to be a member of the Saraswati Mandir Library in Panjim,
On 18 June Road in the heart of town.
in the heart of town. I used to read their books. Of course, that was a little different kind of reading, but still, they had a
More
good
serious?
selection.
More serious?
And of course, yes, it was more serious, more say
Academic.
Eastern,
Yeah.
more Eastern. Whereas then Central Library, I used to read a lot from the Central Library. So I used to read a lot of books. Now, of course, it's, as I say, I read more WhatsApp than WhatsApps forwards
It's fine.
than
It's
books.
fine. You need not feel guilty because of that. But what about the private libraries which were run in places like Margao, Panjim, Mapsa, Avanti, Sekol, all those kind of things? You remember them? You used any of them?
I remember them. I remember Avanti because I used to go. I was never a member of Avanti, but they said, okay, you don't have to be a member. If you keep 30 rupees with us, you can take any book you want, and you read it, and then you give it back, and then you give the 30 rupees back, and of course, whatever the daily charges or whatever.
Yeah.
So I do remember going to Avanti, and in Porvorim we had a lending library run by one Cabral. He was also my age, and
Newspaper agent. This Cabral, former scout. He was a former scout and rovers and all that.
Yes.
From Porvori Highway, just next to this Vada Kode.
Exactly. Yeah.
He had a library in his shop.
Yeah, he had a library in his shop. That was his. You can say that was his brother-in-law.
Okay.
That was his brother-in-law. What Cabral was he?
I forget. He was with us in Scouts and all that. Yeah, he was a college-going boy, but he enterprised. He
Yeah,
used to
he's
get
very enterprising, and he used to sell newspapers in the whole of. He took over almost the whole of Sukkur, and he went as far as Asora also giving his
right. I
newspapers.
see. I see.
Then he started. Then he started having agents in all those areas, and he's still the largest newspaper agent in that entire area.
I see.
Dominic Cabral.
Dominic Cabral. Dominic.
Dominic.
Dominic. So Eric, what we are saying is that at one point it was actually viable for private persons to start lending books, buying these books, lending the books, charging quite a tidy sum in that sense. It used to be 50 paise, 1 rupee for a day, which was decent money for them. It was decent money for them.
It was, yeah. I mean, we never felt the pinch, but we used to read. And I remember reading a lot of books of that library. Then he came to a time when he even said, okay, if you want to take some books and buy some books from me, then you can. And I remember buying a couple of books from him.
As far as I can remember, I was always terrified of the fact that I wouldn't be able to go back on time to return the books because we were village based, no? So I never joined any of these commercial libraries. I did join Central Library. I did join Ataid. Didn't take too much from them. Our college libraries were quite good. Xavier's, we had an excellent librarian in the shape of Professor Newman Fernandez, who later on went to become a professor and principal of St. Xavier's College. But in the late 70s, when we were in college, he was still a librarian and a priest in that sense, or becoming a priest or already a priest. Which he moved out of later, but he was absolutely encouraging as a librarian in that sense. And of course, one more thing, we had this Saligaon Institute library, which was like, a godsend. I mean,
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember that because I used to come to the Saligaon Institute when I was young. I was studying in Mondegiri, and Mondegiri I read. I mean, it was so much that I neglected my studies to read for a couple of years, and they were so bad. They were so bad that the librarian there was a Father Fortunato used to say, "Pinto, you are eating my books. What are you doing with them? 3 a day."
I see.
But then I was
the reading habit is never wasted.
I was totally into the adventure stories of Enid Blyton.
Oh, you're telling me
that was my thing, and she gave me the love for the environment, for the countryside. I think I got to owe it to.
You're telling me about that because in Britos we had this librarian called Almeida. He's still around. His son is a scientist at the NIO, National Institute of Oceanography, Anselm Almeida, and this is Alan Almeida, if I'm not mistaken. We used to call him Mr. Almeida. And he would come up to us and with a very conspiratorial whisper, he would tell you, boys, read this book. With a very, almost as if he was telling you a secret. It's good, he would tell you. So he got us involved with Bigal, he got us involved with Himmat. This was during the emergency, we are reading Himmat, the magazine brought out by Rajmohan Gandhi.
I remember.
So he would get us reading, and he really got us reading into a lot of things. So the school libraries did play a role, and Eric, I'll tell you, even if you think that you wasted your time and you didn't do your studies, it's never time wasted because you're gaining knowledge of another sort.
I don't believe it was.
Very crucial knowledge of another sort. And if that made it, if you became an engineer.
Do you remember a magazine called JS?
Absolutely.
It was such a fantastic magazine.
Okay, so JS, there's a story about that. Jag Saraiya was in town recently. I think he has a second home in Goa or something. He comes here quite often. Jag Saraiya was part of the youngsters who had launched JS in that sense. Junior statesman. His name is also JS, Jag Saraiya. That's his initials. Yeah. But he launched a JS team and he was talking all about it, and he's written about it, his experience there, and how MJ Akbar came to them as a young boy in short pants to ask them to carry his articles and all that. And JS was amazing, because if I'm not mistaken, it was run by Desmond Doig, whatever.
Yes.
Who was the editor, and they were the remnants of the British Raj. They were not Anglo-Indians as far as I know. They were Brits. They were Brits who had opted to stay on in India and Nepal and people like that. And they had a fascinating insight into how to bring out a magazine for young people, basically teenagers.
Yeah.
If they wanted to cover Goa, they would not send a photographer. They would send an artist, and they would paint the streets of Fontaines in watercolors and carry it in their book. Yeah. And
I
one thing
think
I
so. I don't
very,
remember,
I remember
but
that.
I do
And
remember
one
little collection.
one thing, you must listen to this before I forget it.
Yeah,
So
tell
they
me.
had something called a swap shop. Swap shop was classifieds for young people for free, but you were not allowed to sell anything or buy anything. You could only swap, exchange. So I wrote there to that spot saying that I'm collecting scout stamps. Can someone give me scout stamps? And there were actually people who actually sent some stamps and all. They were not scout stamps; they were stamps in general. So we exchanged them. Sorry, I interrupted when you were talking.
No, 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 no. What? No, I only wanted to say that was a great magazine, and I had a lot of. I collected a lot of copies, which were with me until I got married, and then they were eaten up by white ants. But I remember
Yeah.
one of those articles written by Pritish Nandi. He must have been young at the time, and it was a fabulous eye opener. It was called "So Many Freedoms." And he talked about the freedom fighters, the freedom struggles then. And it was also, I think, during the emergency, so he touched on those also. So it was a fascinating article.
Yeah, so that's the
I
point
remember
because
that was one I remember, but I collected so many of them and I kept them, and I just, I'm so sorry that they just got eaten up by Vitals.
Eric, that's the point because good reading is not only going to make you better informed, but it's going to give you ideas. It's going to act as fertilizer for the brain. It's probably also going to make some of us into writers, you know, in that sense.
Yeah.
So that way we are missing the point. Anything else you remember about bookshops, books that changed your life?
No, I don't. But at that time, I was not so much of a collector of books because uh, money was always scarce,
In
and a
the
book did
70s,
cost.
60s, of course. Yeah.
A book did cost a lot. But you know what I used to do? I used to write down something in a little. If something caught
Diary.
my attention, I used to write down. Verbal. I used to copy it in longhand and write down on a little head. And I think I still got that book around. And it was like several years of reading, which I put down in the little book in longhand. And I must see if I brought it along with me when I came from Urudi. A lot of the stuff remained there, but some of it, I think the most precious remained. I
When you
remember
when you shifted home to
when I
Ribandar.
shifted home, yes, after so many years. The first
Yeah.
home I shifted, I had a lot of books, and those I gave away to the central library. And I
Okay.
have kept on doing that as I collected books and said, okay, now. And I told the central library, see, I'm going to come back for these books, and I want you to see, put them in catalogs so that I can see them there, and I want to read them. I can read them again. But they were so, I don't know, they were so bad at doing that. I said, I don't know where my books are lost anymore because I don't remember the names of what. But I did do one thing when I was coming down here. I wrote a list of books which were in my bookshelves, and I said I'll bring them here. And now I put them up inside, but sometimes I can't find, where they've gone. So I need to, re sort them out and put them back into a sort of order.
Right, right. Eric, the one more point you made, which struck me as relevant, you said something about books being costly in those days. I would also like to add that, we often forget that in the 60s and 70s, there was rather little book publishing happening in India as a whole. So,
Yes.
if a book came out, yeah, there were very few books that came out. They were badly produced. There was not much choice. I'm not making fun of those times. They were tough times, and India was just emerging from
Yeah.
British rule and hardly 20 years or 25 years or whatever. And we all ended up reading the same silly books. So, for example, I still remember till date, there was this book in the Central Library called Roses in December by MC Chagla, Mohammad Karim Chagla,
Okay.
as I later learned. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it was this autobiography of a Supreme Court or High Court judge. And I mean,
Okay.
why I read it, I don't know, but I read it because it was there, and there was so little choice. And we spent hours searching, trawling through these central library shelves, and we just found something and read it.
Yeah.
So that's yeah,
That you are very right. There was not much Indian writing, and if it was,
Indian
was very
publishing
little.
as well. Indian publishing.
Of course, Indian publishing as well. That's very true. So all the books that we got were always all that came from the West. And I remember reading a lot of the Westerns, like what was this guy's name? All about this Western,
Novels.
this cowboys,
Yeah.
the cowboy kind. I can't remember the name of the author. I remember reading a lot about him, and I remember reading a lot about other Harold Robbins and the normal kind of books. But I don't remember reading too many Indian authors. It was you needed to. I think that guy called whoever you called, what is Menezes? Who is the fellow who told you all to read this particular book?
Almeida.
What is
Almeida.
his
Almeida.
name? Almeida.
Almeida.
Yeah, that is something that lights a little fire, because we never had someone like that. We went to a library and we picked up most of what we got was fiction. When I went to Atahed Municipal Library, there was this kind of like esoteric. I don't call it esoteric. It was like this Tibetan kind of this thing where you get attracted to religious kind of metaphysical
I see.
books that I got attracted to, and I still have a lot of this thing towards that, like Rupert Sheldrake, and there are other like Isaac Asimov. Then there's Carlson. Say they are totally science, but there are others on the between the science and parapsychology who are also very interesting and who I tend to read and I keep, because
Thank
they
you.
are so few and far between.
Eric, thank you so much for your time. That's an interesting walk down memory lane. I'm sure it would jingle memories for some people, especially those who grew up in the Goa of those times, our times.
Yes.
We must look ahead. We must think of some strategy to maybe have a small lobby group to understand the importance of the book and to take it forward in today's Goa. Goa has been a very historic place as far as the book goes, as far as printing goes. 4.5 centuries and all that. But the real issue is, what are we doing today? So I'd like to really say thanks so much for your time, and maybe we'll come back some other time discussing something else. Thank you.
Yeah, I got to thank you also.
Thanks.
I got to thank you. Yeah.